Hey Donisha, so what I'm going to do is show you a demonstration of a cake that I'm doing for a customer. This is just the vanilla cake. It's actually the recipe that I sent you on text. She just wants it basically all white with the color coming from the decoration. So I'm going to try to get a few key points for you. I do have my cake plate. I use a piece of tape underneath the bottom of the whatever this is called, the cake round. I put a piece of tape underneath on top of my Lazy Susan, then I sit that on top of my cake plate so that it's up higher, and then I can spin it. These are the cake layers. I do have 2 of these. Since my house is somewhat on a slant, it causes a lot of my cakes to lean a little bit, so I do even them or level them off using a serrated knife. So that's what I'm going to do. And right now the cake is still frozen. I just took it out the freezer a few minutes ago. It sat in the freezer overnight. I do also trim some of the sides off as well, because you want it to lay as flat as possible. You just really have to eye it and see when it's totally even. Just take a little bit at a time, because if you take too much, you'll be in trouble. Don't ask me how I know. You can also level off by adding, if there's a spot that's a little bit shorter on one side than the other, what you would do is when you're layering, you would add a little more of your filling or frosting to raise it up so that it's totally even across. That's another trick you can use to level your cakes out. Since this one is actually a little thinner on this side than it is the rest of the way around, I'm just going to trim off a little bit. I don't want to take too much off because then you end up removing too much cake. So what I'm going to do is just trimmed off just a little bit, and then I'm going to do the next one. Just hold it up and you can kind of eye it and see what needs to be trimmed off to make it level. One trick that I try to do to help me to keep my cakes level as much as possible is halfway through the cooking time, I do rotate the pans halfway to try to aid in getting a flatter cake. It's kind of hard because of my house. You can't really tell, but you can tell when you're cooking that it slightly leans in a way. So with this one, I'm just going to do the same thing as the previous one. I'm not going to take off too much, but I'm going to use the filling to also help level out the cake because I don't want to take off too much cake. I did pre-make my filling, this is just cream cheese, heavy whipping cream, sugar, and vanilla. And also, just cream cheese, sugar, vanilla, and the heavy whipping cream. This is going to go in the center of the cake. And I also have my frosting pre-made that I did last night. So it's been refrigerating. And I try to sit it out at least a half an hour before I need to use it so that it's more pliable. You will need your offset spatula and a regular flat spatula. And I do have my piping bags over here. I may or may not use the piping bags. I'm just going to eye it and see. Sometimes I use them, and sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends on what I'm doing and if it's going to make it easier to spread the frosting. So if you're not sure if you're able to get it real straight in between the layers, it is better to use your piping bag so that you can pipe the frosting or the filling in between. It's nice and even. So I'm going to take my first layer, dust it off a little bit. But first what I like to do is take some of the frosting and I put it right in the center. of the cake round and just kind of smooth it down as flat as possible. You don't want it to go wider than your cake. So this is a 6-inch round. So the round I'm using is a 10-inch, but the cake is 6-inch rounds. So I do that, and you just do this so your cake will stick and won't move. Let's make sure you can't see anything. Well, that may be too tall. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is the filling, of course. What I'm actually going to do is I am going to pipe some of this on. And what I like to do with the piping is I try to take a big coffee mug and I put the bag in here so it kind of stabilizes it, and I fold it around. Just going to fold the edges down around the cup like so. And I'm going to actually pipe a border across the edges or the perimeter of the cake. And what that's going to do is, since my filling is a little looser than the frosting, I don't want the filling to spill out on the sides once I add the second layer. So we're just going to pipe a round circle around the perimeter first. So I have the frosting in the bag. Just kind of push it down. This way. Twist it, not too hard. And hopefully you can see this. Just going to pipe all the way around, and this is just, it creates a barrier so that if you are using a filling that is thin or runny, it prevents it from spilling out and it will stay in the middle. So if you can see that, just like that. And we'll save this for later. Just gonna get the filling. And these fillings you can just play around with fillings. You can mix a lemon into it, lemon zest, orange zest, lime zest, play around with different flavors. That's basically what I do. This particular person allowed me to do basically whatever I wanted. They did choose the vanilla cake and basically said I could decorate it however. So I kind of go by the person's personality and maybe the occasion of how I decorate and the colors that I use. This person you've actually met. She's a family friend and a client. She was at the wedding, but she's a real spicy kind of a person, a lot of energy. So I'm gonna decorate the cake according to how her personality is and what I'm sure that she would like. And most of my clients do kind of let me do whatever. They'll give me colors most of the time. And if they don't, I just kind of go by what I think they would like and go from there.